I always thought love would slip into my life gently, like the first warm day of spring after a long winter. Instead, it hit me like a summer storm when I met Ethan Carter. It was a muggy Wednesday evening, the kind where the air feels heavy after a full day of college classes. I boarded the city bus, my backpack slung over one shoulder and a worn tote bag stuffed with library books in my hand, ready to tune out the world until my stop. "Take my seat," Ia's steady voice offered. I glanced up. He was tall, with broad shoulders and a navy jacket that looked too polished for a crowded bus. His smile was effortless, warm, like he'd known me forever. "Thanks," I mumbled, settling into the seat, expecting him to scroll through his phone and forget me. Instead, he gripped the overhead rail and leaned slightly closer, his eyes curious but kind. "You don't seem like a local," he said, his tone light but deliberate. I raised an eyebrow, caught off guard. "I'm a student. UT Austin, English major." "That tracks," he said, his gaze lingering just long enough to make me feel seen without being uneasy. "Sorry, that came out weird." I couldn't help but smile. His laugh was low and genuine, like he actually cared what I thought. We chatted the whole ride, about dive bars, the best food trucks on campus, how Texers couldn't pick a season and stick with it. When the bus lurched to my stop, I stood, ready to fade back into my routine. But then he spoke up. "Hey, can I get your number? I'd like to see you again." I wasn't the type to give my number to strangers. But something about the way he looked at me, like I was the only one on that bus, made me say, "Sure." The next evening, I stood outside a restaurant way fancier than anywhere I'd ever been. Dim lights, valet parking, and a host who sized me up like he could guess my bank balance. I smoothed my plain navy dress, feeling out of place. Then Ethan appeared, his grin lighting up the night. "You look amazing," he said, brushing a quick kiss on my knuckles like some old-school romantic. Dinner with him felt like stepping into a different world. He ordered a bottle of wine I'd never heard of and shared stories about his childhood, split between New York and London with his adoptive parents, James and Eleanor Hayes, who jetted between art galleries and fundraisers. He'd come back to Texas, he said, to find his roots. He wasn't showing off, he just opened up, like he trusted me with his story. When he asked about my life, my classes, my family, my plans, he actually listened. By the time he walked me to my car, I realized I wanted to see him again. After that, we were glued at the hip. Study sessions turned into late-night diner runs. Diner runs became long walks around Lady Bird Lake, then phone calls that lasted until sunrise. Ethan had a way of making me feel like I wasn't just another broke college kid drowning in deadlines. He'd text me good morning before my alarm and good night when I was already half asleep. He'd show up with coffee when I was stressed or surprise me with a single daisy just because. One night, as we sat on his apartment balcony overlooking Austin's skyline, he said, "You should meet my parents. They're gonna love you. They've always wanted me to find someone real." I froze, surprised by how fast things were moving, but it felt right. "You sure?" I asked. "Trust me, Emma, you're special," he said, his grin wide. No one had ever said that to me before, not like that. For the first time in years, I let myself believe I could have something solid, something lasting before Ethan. My life was quiet, maybe too quiet. I grew up in a small town just outside Austin, the kind of place where neighbors know your business before you do. My childhood wasn't glamorous, but it was real. My mom, Linda, everyone calls her Lynn, was a wizard at making ends meet. She worked doubles at the local hardware store, stocking shelves or ringing up customers, whatever kept the lights on. My dad split when I was 8, leaving nothing behind. No calls, no letters, just a void. Mom never badmouthed him, but her jaw tightened whenever his name came up. She didn't have time for grudges. She was too busy raising me and my sister alone. My sister, MEA, 3 years older, was my idol growing up. She was fierce, elegant, a gymnast who dominated local competitions and dreamed of the Olympics. Watching her on the mat was like watching magic. Then came the crash, a rainy night, a wet road, and a truck that didn't stop in time. Her right knee took the worst of it. Doctors saved her leg, but her dreams shattered. She pushed through rehab for months, fighting to compete again, but the pain won. Then her boyfriend walked out. Ethan always knew what to say. When Mir's fiancé bailed, he'd said all the right things. It's not about you, it's him. He couldn't handle your strength. But the truth was colder. He didn't want a life with someone whose dreams had been crushed. MEA folded in on herself after that. She quit gymnastics, quit going out, quit living in any real way. Some days, she'd flash her old spark, laughing over coffee like we were kids again. But most days, she hid in her room, earbuds in, shutting out the world. Watching her fade taught me to guard my heart. I told myself I was just focused on school, English major, maybe grad school for literature, but really, I was terrified of letting anyone close enough to break me. Still, a quiet part of me ached for something real, someone who'd stay. That's why Ethan felt like a gift I didn't deserve. His easy grin and warm voice lifted the weight of my fears, making me feel alive again. Mom noticed first. One Saturday, as she stirred pancake batter, she fixed me with a knowing look. "You're practically glowing, Emma," as she teased, setting the spoon down. "This about a boy?" I tried to dodge, like always, but a laugh slipped out. "Yeah, okay, there's someone." She studied me, her smile tinged with worry. "Just be careful, sweetheart. Your heart's worth more than you know." I thought she was just being Mom, protective as always. I didn't realize how much I'd need her warning. When Ethan invited me to meet his parents, my stomach flipped with nerves and excitement. Meeting the family was a big step. It meant we weren't just dating. It meant he saw a future. "They're a bit unique," he said with a grin, navigating his SUV through the twisting roads of Austin's outskirts. "They've lived everywhere. New York, Paris, you name it. You'll like them." That word, unique, stuck with me. My roommate, Sophie, had given me odd advice before I left. If they speak French, act like you don't get it. People let their guard down when they think you're clueless. I laughed it off. "Sophie, I barely passed intro French." "Exactly," as she said, pointing at me. "Play dumb. Smile and nod. Trust me." So, I decided to follow her advice, just in case. The Hayes house was straight out of a design magazine. Clean lines, floor-to-ceiling windows, and art that probably cost more than my tuition. Eleanor Hayes greeted us at the door, her silver blonde hair pinned elegantly, her smile polished but sharp. James, her husband, followed, his eyes scanning me like he was reading a resume. "Welcome, Emma," Eleanor said, air-kissing Ethan's cheeks before turning to me. Ethan jumped in, as she's mostly an English-only gal, Mom. Eleanor's smile didn't waver, but something flickered in her eyes, curiosity, maybe, or something colder. Dinner was like a scene from a movie, a polished mahogany table, candlelight glinting off crystal glasses, and questions about my classes and family that felt rehearsed. Ethan's hand rested lightly on mine, grounding me. But halfway through dessert, Eleanor glanced at James and switched to French. "Eleni sait par pourquoi nous avons besoin d'elle, n'est-ce pas?" My heart stuttered, but I kept my face blank, sipping my water like I hadn't caught a word. Ethan replied smoothly, also in French, Anon, LNA or CUNY day. Eleanor's lips curved as she switched back to English, complimenting my earrings like nothing had happened. I smiled, but my pulse raced. Need me for what? The rest of the night blurred, me nodding, laughing on cue, while those words looped in my head. I in the car. Ethan was all charm, asking what I thought of his parents. They're impressive, I said, choosing my words. He chuckled. Yeah, they can come off intense. Don't worry, it's just their way. I stared out the window, unease curling in my gut. That night, alone in my apartment, I whispered the words I'd overheard. She doesn't know why we need her. Whatever it meant, it wasn't about love or family. It was about me being part of some plan. For the first time, Ethan's warmth felt like a mask, and a chill settled in my chest. 2 weeks later, Ethan pitched a getaway. Let's escape for the weekend, he said, leaning against my kitchen counter, all casual charm. I found a cabin in the hill country. Just us, no stress. It sounded perfect, a chance to shake off the echo of Eleanor's words. But doubt lingered. He noticed my hesitation and stepped closer, tilting my chin up. You've been on edge, Em. Let me take care of you. His voice was so soft, so convincing, I nodded. Okay, let's do it. The drive was stunning, golden hills, wildflowers dancing in the breeze, Ethan humming along to the radio. He seemed so relaxed, like this was just another chapter in our story. I wanted to believe it, to let go of my suspicions. The cabin was breathtaking, cedar and stone, a wide porch overlooking a glassy lake that caught the sunset. Not bad, right? Ethan said, wrapping an arm around me. Inside, it was even better. Cozy fireplace, plush rugs, a kitchen stocked with everything we'd need. He poured me a glass of red wine. To us, he toasted, his smile disarming. We cooked, laughed, talked about nothing important, and for a few hours, I forgot my fears. Then I noticed how often he refilled my glass. By the time we sat down, the room spun softly, my limbs heavy. Ethan, I'm dizzy, I mumbled, my words sluggish. He was at my side in a flash, easing me onto the couch. Just rest, he murmured, his voice calm but distant, like he was reading a script. I woke to the smell of damp earth and something sharp, metallic. My head pounded, and my wrists burned, tied behind my back. I was on a cold concrete floor, in what looked like a basement. Panic clawed at my chest. Then I heard Ethan's voice from above, steady and cold. Yeah, she's ready. Everything's set. My blood ran cold. Ready for what? Ethan! I shouted, my voice cracking. He appeared at the top of the stairs, descending slowly, his face soft but wrong, like a stranger wearing his skin. Emma, you'll understand soon. This is bigger than you know. Untie me, Ethan, please, I begged, my voice shaking. This isn't funny. He knelt in front of me, brushing hair from my face with a tenderness that chilled me. Trust me, Em. You'll thank me later. In that moment, staring into the eyes of the man I thought I loved, I knew two things. He wasn't who I believed, and if I didn't escape, I might never see home again. The ropes bit into my skin, but I forced myself to focus. My pulse thundered as I scanned the dim basement. A single bulb flickered above, casting shadows on the concrete walls. There, a jagged nail protruding from a splintered doorframe. I inched toward it, knees scraping the floor, praying Ethan wouldn't hear. My wrists burned as I rubbed the ropes against the nail, fraying them strand by strand. One hand slipped free, then the other. I fumbled with the knots at my ankles, hands trembling, slick with sweat. Upstairs, Ethan's voice drifted. She's secure. No, she doesn't suspect anything. My stomach lurched. I eyed the stairs. Too risky. Instead, I spotted a small window near the ceiling, barely wide enough. I shoved it open, the frame scraping my skin as I hauled myself through, tumbling into the cool night air. The lake shimmered in the distance, but I didn't stop to look. I ran, heart pounding, into the dark. The night air stung my scraped arms as I tumbled onto the damp grass outside the cabin's window. I didn't pause to catch my breath. I ran. Twigs snapped underfoot, branches clawing at my face as I crashed through the dense hill country woods. Behind me, Ethan's voice sliced through the darkness. Emma, stop. You're making this harder than it needs to be. His words were calm, almost pleading, but they only fueled my panic. My lungs burned, my legs wobbled, but I kept moving, each step driven by the image of those ropes and his cold, calculated voice saying, "She's ready." A faint glow flickered ahead, a cabin, its porch light cutting through the trees. I stumbled over a root, hitting the ground hard, dirt grinding into my palms. Scrambling up, I sprinted toward the light, my voice roar as I pounded on the door. Help! Please, someone. The door flew open, revealing a broad-shouldered man in a faded flannel shirt, his face shadowed but alert. A German shepherd stood at his side, growling low, hackles raised. What's going on? He demanded, his voice sharp as his eyes scanned me, disheveled, trembling, rope burns red on my wrists. He drugged me, or I gasped, tears streaming down my face. My boyfriend, he tied me up. He's coming. Please. The man didn't hesitate. Get inside, he said, stepping aside. Ranger, guard. The dog shot into the night, barking fiercely as the man slammed the door shut and locked it. You're safe now. Sit. I collapsed onto a worn couch, my body shaking as the adrenaline ebbed. He knelt in front of me, checking the marks on my wrists. Who did this? Ethan Carter, I stammered. My boyfriend. His, or not who I thought. The words felt like a confession, each one heavier than the last. His jaw tightened. Name's Luke Dawson. Live out here, used to be a paramedic with the fire department. You're safe now. He handed me a blanket, his voice steady but firm. Stay put. I'm calling the sheriff. He dialed quickly, relaying details with calm precision. When he hung up, he crouched beside me again. They're on their way. You're okay now. But as I clutched the blanket, Ethan's words echoed in my head. She doesn't know why we need her. Whatever his plan was, it wasn't over, not for me. 20 minutes later, sirens cut through the quiet. My mom and MIA arrived soon after, Luke having called them when I could barely speak. Mom wrapped me in a hug so tight it felt like she was trying to hold my pieces together. You're safe, baby, as she whispered, her voice breaking. But even in her arms, I couldn't shake the question burning in my mind. Why do they need me? The sheriff's station was cold, the fluorescent lights harsh against my raw nerves. A deputy draped a scratchy blanket over my shoulders as I sat across from Detective Ramirez, a woman with a steady gaze and a notepad full of questions. Start from the beginning, Emma, as she said gently. So I did, meeting Ethan, falling for his charm, the dinner with his parents, the French I wasn't meant to understand, and waking up tied in that basement. When I repeated Eleanor's words, "ELNE sate par pourquoi nous avons besoin d'elle," and Ethan's reply, Ramirez exchanged a glance with another officer. "That fits with what we've been tracking," she said. "It tracking what?" I asked, my voice brittle. She leaned forward, her tone measured. "Ethan Carter's adoptive parents, James and Eleanor Hayes, have been on our radar for international fraud. They pose as private investigators, promising wealthy families they'll find missing loved ones, for a price. Millions, sometimes. But they rarely deliver the real person. When they do, it's a stand-in. A look-alike." My stomach dropped. "A look-alike, like me?" Ramirez nodded. "One of their clients is Marcus Kellerman, a tech billionaire whose daughter vanished a decade ago. He's desperate, willing to pay anything to get her back. You bear a striking resemblance to her." The room spun. "So Ethan, he never loved me." "He targeted you," Ramirez said bluntly. "Built your trust, got you invested, then planned to parse you off as Kellerman's daughter. They'd have forged documents to seal the deal." A shiver ran through me, colder than the basement floor. By dawn, deputies had raided the cabin. They found the ropes, a bottle of wine laced with sedatives, and a backpack stuffed with fake IDs, including a passport with my photo but a stranger's name. James and Eleanor were arrested at a private airstrip, trying to flee to London. Ethan was caught later, hiding in a rundown motel outside Austin. When they brought him into the station, I was still there, giving my statement. He looked at me, his expression calm, almost sad. "Emma, you don't have to hate me," he said softly as the cuffs glinted on his wrists. "I was giving you a better life." I stared, my voice steady despite the rage inside. "A better life?" "You drugged me, lied to me, tried to sell me like I was nothing." A flicker crossed his face. Guilt, maybe, but it vanished as the deputies led him away. The FBI took over within days. The Hayes scam wasn't new. They'd pulled similar cons in Europe, swapping lookalikes for missing heirs. Most victims stayed quiet, too humiliated or broken to speak. But I wouldn't. I gave statements, sat through interviews, and faced every question, each word clawing back a piece of the strength Ethan had tried to steal. Still, the nights were brutal. I'd wake gasping, the basement's cold concrete vivid in my mind, Ethan's voice whispering, "You'll thank me." Luke Dawson checked in often, sometimes just sitting on my porch with Ranger sprawled nearby. His quiet presence steadied me, a reminder that not everyone hid a lie behind their kindness. Weeks blurred into months. Mom kept the fridge stocked with her comfort food, lasagna, pecan pie, anything to fill the silence. Emma started opening up, her own pain surfacing as she talked about her accident, her lost dreams. One night, as we sat on the couch with a half-eaten pie between us, she grabbed my hand. "You're stronger than I was," she said. "You didn't let him break you." But I didn't feel strong. I felt cracked, like a plate glued back together, functional, but not whole. Safety wasn't what I'd imagined. Every creak in the house made my heart race. Every stranger's glance felt like a threat. I kept digging for answers, needing to understand why Ethan's family had chosen me. Ramirez shared what she could. My resemblance to Kellerman's daughter was no coincidence. They'd scouted me for months, Ethan's a chance, a meeting on the bus carefully planned. One afternoon, Luke stopped by with coffee and a question. "You ever think about getting away for real? Somewhere new, no ghosts?" I looked at him, Ranger dozing at his feet, and realized I hadn't thought beyond surviving. Maybe it was time to start. I wasn't free yet, not fully. Ethan's betrayal lingered, a shadow I couldn't outrun. But as I sat there, the Texas sun warm on my face, I felt something shift. Not safety, not yet, but a spark of something stronger, the will to rebuild, to trust myself again. Mia's words hit me like a quiet revelation one afternoon, her eyes shining with unshed tears. You didn't deserve what happened, Emma. And I didn't deserve what I lost either. Maybe it's time we stop carrying the weight of other people's choices. Her voice trembled, but it carried a strength I hadn't heard in years. Those words stayed with me, like a seed planted in cracked soil, waiting for the right moment to grow. Luke Dawson helped that seed take root. He'd show up on my porch with Ranger, his German shepherd, tail wagging like he sensed my mood before I did. Just checking in, a Luke would say, his voice low and steady, scratching Ranger's ears. You holding up okay? I'd shrug, exhaustion clinging to me like damp clothes. Some days are better than others. He'd nod, his eyes carrying a quiet understanding. Healing's not a straight line. It's rough, slow, and that's all right. There was a weight to his words, a story he hadn't shared yet. One evening, as we walked Ranger along the edge of Lady Bird Lake, he told me. Lost my wife and son in a car crash 7 years ago, he said, his gaze fixed on the water. Left the fire department after that, moved out here to get away from the pity. Couldn't stand people looking at me like I was something to fix. I looked at him, seeing the same push-pull I felt, wanting connection but fearing the cost. How do you keep going? I asked. You don't, he said simply. Not at first. Then one day, you realize you're still here, and maybe that's enough to start again. Over the next few weeks, our talks became a lifeline. Some days would dive deep, grief, betrayal, the slow work of trusting again. Other days, it was lighter, the best taco truck in Austin, whether Ranger preferred chicken or beef. Luke didn't try to patch me up or push me to move on. He just let me be, and that felt like a kind of safety I'd forgotten existed. One evening, as the Texas sky burned gold over the hills, Luke said something that stopped me cold. You're tougher than you know, Emma. You didn't just survive. You ran, you fought, you saved yourself. That's strength most people never tap into. My throat tightened. I don't feel strong. You don't have to feel it to live it, he said, his voice soft but sure. In time, we started helping each other heal. Luke pushed me to take walks without flinching at every rustling leaf, and I nudged him to reconnect with old friends, to let people in again. Then came a breakthrough neither of us expected. Through Luke's old contacts in search and rescue, we tracked down Marcus Kellerman's real daughter, Lily, living quietly in a small Colorado town. Watching their reunion, Marcus sobbing as he held her, Lily's stunned smile, undid something in me. Not every story ended in lies. Some things could still be whole. That night, on Luke's porch with Ranger sprawled at our feet, I felt a flicker of peace. Luke handed me a mug of coffee, his fingers brushing mine. You know, he said, almost shy, I'm glad you're around. I smiled, a real one, not forced. I'm glad I'm here too. For the first time since Ethan, I wasn't afraid, not of Luke, not of opening my heart, not of what came next. The months slipped by, and my life rebuilt itself in quiet ways. Luke and I didn't rush, but our connection grew steady, like the slow rise of the sun. He was patient, his silences warm instead of heavy. One evening, Emma stood in our living room, her crutches gone, her face lit with nervous hope. I got approved for the final surgery, as she said, her voice shaking. Marcus Kellerman, out of gratitude for finding Lily, had covered every cost to help Mia walk. And maybe even compete. Again. The night before her surgery, Mia took my hands, her eyes fierce. You saved me, Em. You didn't just get out, you pulled me out of my own darkness too. I hugged her, realizing healing wasn't just mine. It spread, touching everyone I loved. A year later, on a warm April evening, Luke led me to the lake near his cabin. Ranger bounded ahead, chasing fireflies like he knew something was coming. Luke stopped, his hands fidgeting, a rare nervousness in his voice. Emma, I thought my life was done after the crash. That I'd had my shot at love and lost it. Then you came crashing through my door, scared but fighting. You woke me up. He pulled out a small box, revealing a simple silver ring with a single sapphire. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I want to face it with you. Will you marry me? Tears blurred my vision as I whispered, a yes. The world stilled, the breeze, the water, the weight of my past. I wasn't broken anymore. I was enough. We married in Mir's old gymnastics studio, the one she'd avoided for years. That day, she moved across the floor, slow but graceful, her first routine since the accident. Luke and I watched, tears in our eyes, as she reclaimed her light. A month later, as we settled into the small house Luke had built near the lake, I stared at a pregnancy test, my hands trembling. Positive. That night, I stood on our porch, one hand on my stomach, the stars sprawling above the hill country. We're okay now, I whispered. We're safe. I'd thought Ethan's betrayal would make the world feel dangerous forever, that trust would always be out of reach. I was wrong. Sometimes, life shatters you so something stronger can grow. This life, mine, ours, was finally, beautifully whole again.